guys, it's Bonnie. Today, when I am uploading this, it is my birthday. I'm now 24, but we're not gonna talk about it. So a couple weeks before my birthday, I had this idea to read the books that were popular on the New York Times bestseller list the week that I was born. I ended up deciding to read 3 different books from 3 different categories of the New York Times bestseller list. If I had thought of this sooner, maybe I would have read more, but like I said, I only thought of it a couple weeks before my birthday. I just thought it would be cool to see what people were reading when I came to this world, when I came out of my mother's womb and blessed everyone around me. More like curse. Anyway, I feel like if I talk about this any longer, it's just gonna get creepier and creepier. So let's jump to the clip of me finding out what books I have to read. So I think for this, I'm going to try to read 3 books and I'm gonna try to do 3 different categories. I don't believe in 1994 that the New York Times had a children's bestseller list yet. So the list I'm going to be looking at are the usual, the fiction, hardback, non-fiction, and then paperback, because I think these 3 will just provide a more diverse array of options. Or maybe not diverse, you know, like diversity didn't happen in the 90s. Hopefully the non-fiction isn't like some Republican or something. My birthday is the 19th, but I had already looked up which weeks were listed in December for 1994, and the 18th was the closest to my birthday. Okay, so the book at number 1 on the list is Politically Correct Bedtime Stories by James Finn Garner. Honestly, this sounds like it's gonna be a hot problematic mess, but we'll see. So this description says, once upon a time in the olden days, heavy-set middle-aged men would congregate in their elitist clubs, sit in overstuffed leather chairs, smoke air-choking cigars, and pitch story ideas and plots to each other. Problem was, these stories, many of which found their way into the general social consciousness, reflected the way in which these men lived and saw their world. That is, the stories were sexist, discriminatory, unfair, culturally biased, and in general, demeaning to witches, animals, goblins, and fairies everywhere. Finally, after centuries of these abusive tales, which have been handed down unknowingly from one male-based generation to the next, James Finn Garner has taken it upon himself, that's right, yet another man, to enlighten and liberate these classic bedtime stories and retell them in a way that is much more in keeping with the society in which we live today. Okay, at least it'll be a quick read, I guess. Now we need to look at non-fiction. Is that on this same page? So number 1 for non-fiction was Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man by Tim Allen. It doesn't sound promising. Wait, is Tim Allen that guy from the TV show? Oh, maybe this won't be too bad. Okay, we'll see. In a dual biography and humorous information guide, the star of Home Improvement discusses his prison term and successful television show while offering hints on how to deal with the opposite sex and recognize the parallels between golf courses and strip joints. Well then, okay. I guess it could have been worse. It could have been a Republican. So now we need to get the paperback list, which I think is on a different page of its own. Okay, here we go. Paperback bestsellers. Number 1 is A Dangerous Fortune by Ken Follett. These are all by men. Just my luck. Oh god, this doesn't look promising. 596 pages! I then go on to mumble read the description, so we'll get to that later. So I guess those are the books that I'm going to be attempting to read. Although I'm gonna say if A Dangerous Fortune doesn't like interest me, then I'm not gonna read the whole thing because it's pretty long and I don't want to make myself suffer just for this video.
1 week later.
So I am here to give my first update. I just finished A Dangerous Fortune by Ken Follett. I went into this with pretty low expectations. This book is set in the 1800s and it spans many decades. In the beginning, we are set at this boys' school in England, or somewhere in England, I think. And there's a very mysterious drowning that causes some uproar. Some deception goes on, a lot of tomfoolery, and this just sets up a series of events that unfold throughout the book. At the center of it is this pretty wealthy family who owns a large bank, and so the bank is kept in the family. That's how they stay rich, you know, rich people doing rich things. But there's also other characters scattered along that get intertwined in all of the shenanigans. It's honestly hard to explain because it's such a complex book that involves such intricate relationships between so many different characters. It's not confusing when you're reading it, but trying to explain it to someone else is a little difficult. Like I said, I had pretty pretty low expectations for this one. Something about it just, I don't know, didn't seem like it was gonna be something that I enjoyed, but I loved it. I'm definitely a character-based reader, and like I said, there are so many intricate relationships in this book, and it was so fascinating. The villains in this book are the kind of villains that you're like, you are a horrible person, but the way you are conducting your business is so freaking interesting. There's one character in particular, Augusta, who is an awful person and does many awful things, but the way she does it, oh my God, she's the baddest bitch that I have read about in a long time. Something she does at the end of the novel just had me screaming. Like, I was finishing the book and I was like, okay, this is probably at least a 4-star book. I'm really enjoying this. And then she did that and I was like, oh. Honestly, the more I talk about it, the more I feel like I really enjoyed this. I don't know if it's a complete 5-star, it might be 4.5, but either way it's close and I'm just blown away. I never would have read this if I hadn't come up with this video idea. And I'm so glad I did. I can see why it was still popular, even though it was obviously published in 93, but I can see why it was still popular in 94 as a paperback bestseller, because
3 days later.
So I just finished reading Don't Stand Too Close to a Naked Man by Tim Allen. I did not have high expectations of this going in. However, it did raise a little bit after I read the introduction, because there was just multiple times that I laughed out loud and I was like, maybe this is actually going to be a really humorous, enjoyable book. But alas, I was misled. I was bamboozled. It's hard to even describe what this book is really about. I guess you could call it a guide to understanding men, but even then, not really. It was honestly just Tim Allen talking about the most stereotypical things that men do and men enjoy. I obviously had to keep in mind that this was written in the 90s, and it wasn't so much that, oh, this was necessarily offensive or whatever. It was just, like I said, the most stereotypical depiction of masculinity. A very bluntly cut, this is men thing, this is women thing. Like I said, this was written in the 90s, so we weren't at the point where we were understanding more that what men like women can like, and what women like men can like, and all of that stuff, you know, that seems so basic today, but 20-something years ago. But even keeping the time period in mind, I just don't see what the point of this book was, because it didn't say anything new. The only thing that I learned about Tim Allen from reading this book is that his real last name is Dick. And let me just tell you, the section on penises was so long. And that he had a stint in prison. Otherwise, everything else he talked about was literally just, this is what the men do. He didn't really talk about his career in acting, his career in comedy. He would have a few funny one-liners here and there, but then the rest of it would just be back to the boring, stereotypical, nothing new kind of thing. I will say I could kind of feel his voice throughout this. It really did read like he just sat down and wrote it. So yeah, it wasn't the worst thing I ever read, but I didn't feel like I gained anything from reading it. I don't feel like I have some new insight on men, except maybe wondering why again I'm attracted to them. So yeah, I would not recommend this one, giving it 2 stars.
3 hours later.
So I just finished my last book, which was Politically Correct Bedtime Stories. I absolutely hated this. Basically, it takes common fairy tales like Cinderella, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, things like that, and makes them politically correct. I definitely think there's a way that this could have been written so that it was actually funny, but I just slugged through this book and it was the shortest of all of them. Sometimes there would be a part of the story or a phrase here or there that would be a little humorous. Like, I think the funniest part of literally any of the stories is in the retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. When she's going to grandma, she's not bringing a basket of sweets, she's bringing a basket of fruits and vegetables and mineral water. But that's the only thing that stood out to me that I was like, oh, that's funny. It just really came off to me as that conservative who's like, oh, feminists just want Frosty the Snowman to be gender neutral. What they believe to be politically correct isn't really what most people are fighting for. I don't even know how to describe describe it, because like I said, there's probably a way that you could do this to where it is funny, but this was just so bogged down, and it just gave off the mentality of I don't want to be politically correct at all, rather than, oh, we're kind of tripping over ourselves trying to be politically correct these days. Like, I don't know. Obviously this wasn't these days either, this was the 90s. I don't know, it just did not work for me. The writing just did not flow. Sometimes the stories didn't even really make sense. I feel like this author just wanted to jump on the mocking politically correctness bandwagon, but didn't put any time or thought or effort into actually putting out something that is an interesting take. It was just like, let me take every word I can possibly make and turn it politically correct, resulting in this bogged down, boring, uninteresting to read piece. So I'm giving this book 1 star because I did not enjoy it whatsoever. So there you have it. Those were my thoughts on 3 books that were popular the week that I was born. Was it a complete success? No. As you saw, 2 of the books were rated really low. However, A Dangerous Fortune ended up being a 5-star read. So in the end, was this experiment worth it? I say yes. I think this showed that I really do need to step out of my comfort zone more often, because A Dangerous Fortune, love her. Hope some of y'all check it out. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you know some of the books that were popular the week that you were born, let me know what they are, because I think it's a really thing just to find out, even if you don't end up reading them. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!